Somewhere between architecture and enchantment, between craftsmanship and fairy tale, these homes exist. They were designed for a place where the lake is impossibly blue, the forest burns gold every autumn, and the mountains carry a secret that is centuries old. That secret has a name. It is the story of King Laurin. There is something that anyone who has spent enough time in the Dolomites comes to know. At the moment the sun first touches the mountain peaks and begins to descend, the white rock faces ignite. Flushing rose, then crimson, then a deep and burning amber, as if something inside the stone has been set alight. The people of this region call it Enrosadira. Behind it is a story of pride, of desperate love, and of a curse, with one fatal flaw. King Laurin ruled the world beneath the earth, a kingdom of dwarf craftsmen who knew how to strike stone into gold and breathe shape into raw metal. He was not tall by any measure, but his power was immense. A magic belt gave him the strength of 12 men. A ring made him invisible. A cloak allowed him to move with the speed of wind through a narrow pass. But none of these were what Laurin was most proud of. That was his rose garden. Tucked into a secret valley between the Dolomite walls, the garden was a place that existed outside ordinary rules. The roses bloomed through every season, through deep snow, through ice storms, through the long darkness of alpine winter. Their petals were thin as silk, but hard as gemstone, and at night, each blossom gave off a soft, warm light, so the garden glowed like a field of living candles beneath the open sky. Laurin had protected it with a single thread of golden silk stretched around its perimeter. Anyone who dared to cross that thread would pay with one hand and one foot. No one had ever dared. Until the day Laurin saw Similda. She was the daughter of a lord from the surrounding valleys, and her beauty, it was said, made even the roses in Laurin's garden lower their heads. He saw her at a summer celebration, and in that brief and careless moment, he forgot everything. His power, his kingdom, and every instinct that had kept him safe for centuries. He took her. He brought her into the rose garden, believing that its beauty would convince her to stay, that if she could only see what he had built, she would understand what he felt. But Similda did not want roses. She wanted to go home. Her brother gathered a company of warriors, among them the great Dietrich of Bern, whose reputation echoed from peak to peak across the mountain range, and they marched toward the secret valley. They knew ordinary weapons would not be enough. The magic belt made Laurin stronger than any force they could bring against him in open combat, but they had learned one thing. The golden silk thread could not be cut by a sword or a spear, only by something humbler. A simple scythe. In the chaos of the battle that followed, Dietrich seized the magic belt and tore it from Laurin's body. The dwarf king collapsed instantly, all the borrowed strength leaving him at once. Similde was freed, and Laurin, bound in chains, stripped of everything, felt for the first time in his life the full weight of humiliation. But rather than regret, he chose fury. In his chains, He turned and looked back at his rose garden. The garden he had spent a lifetime building. The garden that had started everything. The garden he now would never tend again. And he cursed it. "I curse you," he said, "so that no one shall ever look upon you again, not by day, not by night." At once the garden vanished, the roses extinguished, the valley walls fell cold and pale and silent, like any other unremarkable stretch of mountain stone. But Laurin had made one mistake in his rage, one careless, irreversible oversight. He had not cursed the hour between day and night. He had forgotten the twilight. And so, every evening, in that narrow and unclaimed moment when the sun has not fully set and the darkness has not fully arrived, Laurin's roses wake. No one sees the flowers themselves, but the light they release rises through the rock, floods the stone faces of the Dolomites, and sets the entire mountain range ablaze in rose and amber and deep trembling red. That is Enrosadira, the glow of invisible roses, the consequence of a love that reached too far, and a curse that did not reach quite far enough. And even now, if you stand at the edge of Pragser Wildsee as the sun goes down, and you watch the mountains above you turn to fire, you are watching Laurin's garden bloom. You just cannot see the flowers. These homes range from 300 to 500 square feet. Small enough to feel like a secret, large enough to hold everything that matters. In a place like Pragser Wildsee, you don't need more space than the forest allows. You only need enough room for a fire, a window facing the lake, and a story worth telling.